Hey Wargamers, welcome back to the channel, Death from Above Wargaming. I'm Aaron, and I'm back again with round 3 of our Battlytics tournament. That is right, we are on round 3. This is the final 8 here. So really excited here. We've got a couple teams that have made it all the way from round 1, and they are here. They've got 2 wins in their belts. They're looking to advance further. And of course, we're still following that upper right-hand bracket. And tonight we're going to be looking at the Ion Raiders, who are still alive, against Thunder Rolls, who had an absolute monstrous victory in round 2. So this is going to be, the survivors against the Devastators here. Very excited to see how this one shakes out. But just looking at the rest of the bracket here, some really good competition. We have some other teams, again, that have advanced all the way from round 1. Some ones that have actually some upset games, if you will, some teams that seeded very high, but then just weren't able to win. So we've got WLRM Radio Free Tharkad, love it, fantastic name. So they are in this round against the Artful Dodger. We have Mostly Harmless. That was a seeded team that won in round 2. They're facing the Moon Knights, who basically upset the Gentlemen in round 2 and have moved on. So that's going to be a good one to watch. And then the Unicorns of the Apocalypse, fantastic name, good lance design. They're going to be going up against Rockers Rangers. So the winners of these 4 matchups, that's going to be our final 4. The winners, basically, it's our semifinals. So the winners of that will then advance into the final round. So we're getting close here, guys. So tonight, again, we're going to be looking at the Ion Raiders. This is John from Ion Radio's team against Thunder Rolls. So this is going to be a good one. So guys, stick around. It's coming right up. All right, guys, here we are, round 3 action. Ion Raiders versus Thunder Rolls. So we've got some exciting stuff going on here. So again, Thunder Rolls was seeded 7th. They got a first round bye, and they absolutely decimated the Kanagawa Crushers in round 2. Was it a fluke? Was it a good matchup? Is this a lance to watch? Will they make it all the way? I don't know. Meanwhile, the Ion Raiders, they're fighters, right? This lance, I believe 15th they were seeded at, so they fought their way through rounds 1. They fought their way through round 2. Both of those were close, but decisive wins, like within 5 to 10%, I believe. So this lance pretty solid as well. I love that awesome Marauder, obviously one of my favorites. The Rifleman and the Phoenix Hawk, sometimes they perform, sometimes they don't. It will be interesting to see how it shakes out here. So looking at the lances real quickly, again, the Ion Raiders, awesome Marauder, Rifleman, Phoenix Hawk. Their skill just above, on average, just above a 3. Only 1 skill 4 pilot in that Rifleman. The armor, very good. Structure, very good as well. Pretty speedy, but again, you just really brought up the average with that Phoenix Hawk. That awesome, kind of slow. I've mentioned it before. I think that Phoenix Hawk sort of in a suicide role in pursuit, but so far it's been working out. It is twice the speed of that awesome, so we'll see how that shakes out. This lands at 150 PV, so min-maxed to the point. Now, on the Thunder Roll side, representing the good old Federated Sons here. So these guys, Warhammers, 60 variant there, very, very strong. The Crab in a pursuit, actually in a Vanguard roll. Either way, this is the only mech that is in a forward roll. It's getting in. Last time we saw it, it just got obliterated because the other 3 mechs, the Warhammers and the Trebuchet, all in a direct fire roll. Also good armor, also strong on the structure side. Skill also slightly above a 3. 1 skill 4 pilot, which is the Crab in this case, and 150 points on the nose. So both of these lances sort of similar in terms of the key force markers and just sort of the distribution of skills and things like that. I think even from a tonnage perspective, they're very similar as well. Although the Iron Raiders, they've got the 60 and 45 ton tandem. This lance with the two mediums at 50 tons. But overall, I think in terms of tonnage, very similar. So it'll be good to see how these guys stack up. The winner of this goes to the semifinals. So this is a big deal, guys. Stick around. Let's see what happens. All right, guys, we're going to start out with the Ion Raiders. Let's take a look at the rated versus actual damage first. So good long-range damage. I always love to see that. It's a good sign out of the gate. Good strong medium damage, short range, just a little under the expected there. Then we jump into the battle metrics, and it's like all too familiar. Only about 1/3 of the damage dealt was dealt by the Ion Raiders. 2/3 done by Thunder Rolls. So we saw how that panned out with the Kanagawa Crushers. I don't know if it's the same thing here, but let's see. The damage curve is very flat, both for damage dealt and damage received. It does pick up a little bit in the mid, sort of that mid-range, turns 4 to 7. But overall, you don't see like a huge spike or anything along those lines. Survivability on the Ion Raiders side, 19.7%. So we'll have to see how that stacks up against the other side of the fence there, the Thunder Rolls lance. But it's a bit of a mix. You have some mechs that drop off very early, probably the Phoenix Hawk, as we've seen before with this lance, and then you have some that do persist throughout the sort of the tail of the game. From an efficiency analysis perspective, this lands at 72.1%, with the Awesome and Marauder outperforming the average, but the Awesome really the only mech over 100%. In terms of just the movement profile for this particular lance, I mean, it's a mess. You've got, on both sides, I should say. I mean, this is a true scrum. You've got some mechs just in a circle of death there in the middle. Even that rifleman that was deployed on the outside really tends to pull to the center to try to get as many shots down range as it can. So we'll see. We'll see how these mechs do here. The Awesome did pretty well. So again, this was the only one over 100%. Efficiency was 111.1%. Repeating, of course. And so the battle metrics here did very well early in the game. Turns 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's outperforming. But then, late game, turn 8, turn 9, turn 10, it starts to take a ton of damage. 5, 6, 10 points of damage or so. That's really where it starts to take those critical hits. Doesn't take a lot, only 1.6 on average per game. It's dealing 2.8 crits per game, so that's good. That's a good ratio. And again, largely doing more damage than it's taking, 11.2 points versus 10.3, so very good. It's surviving about 50% of the games. I think that's good, but may not be great because it is the best survivor out of all of the Ion Raiders. So let's take a look now at that Marauder. Love the Marauder. Typically does very well. In this case, it does tend to get blown up pretty quickly, taking damage almost immediately in turn 2, and then it really spikes up. It gets primed up pretty hard on turn 5. Survivability, we see by turn 5, turn 6 is where you're already in internal structure. Again, it's taking those early game shots, and then by the time it really gets focused down, you're already taking crits. So it's almost taking, it's actually more than 2 times the number of crits than it's dealing. So 2.7 crits on average per game. That's a lot. It's only dealing about half the amount of damage than it's taking, and under par there. So we're looking at about 12.5%, right? That would be 1/8 of the overall damage. But it costs 14% of the PV, so we'd be hoping to be around there, but it's not. It's only 10.3%. It's only surviving 5.5% of the time. Not great. Ion Raiders, I don't know. This could be the end. The Rifleman, how did this thing do? Again, just it's not able to connect. I do think it's that skill 4 pilot, and it's kind of great to see this game over game, right? 2,500 games, but also in different matchups. We saw this in the last one. We saw it in the first one with the Ion Raiders. We're seeing it again here. It's under 1 point of damage average. It's way under the average for the that dotted white line across all of the mechs on the table. It's just that high skill, that crappy long range damage. It's not able to really connect and do what it needs to do. It is surviving 20.2% of the time. It's the second best survivor in the Lance. It's positioned in direct fire roll. It's hanging out around medium range, average range of 11.4 inches. But it's just not, again, just not connecting. 3.3 points of damage over the course of the game is, like I feel like my Locust or Bulldog, medium tank will do, will do better than this particular mech. But such is life. As far as armor goes, I mean, again, it's surviving pretty well. It's not really seeing critical hits until about halfway through the game, but it's just not doing the damage. So efficiency at 58.4%. That's like that's not really great for me. I would, I think when you're in the 70s, you can start talking about the mech. And when you're in the 50s, below that 60% mark, that's pretty rough. And we've seen, we've seen the other side. We've seen that other Lance, Rolling Thunder. The thing can shell out damage. I think this Rifleman, I mean, look at the damage curve, just kind of going back to that thing. I think it's just getting obliterated really early. Taking a couple of crits, gets knocked out. I mean, just one weapon hit effectively neuters this mech. So anyway, let's look at the Phoenix Hawk. I have high hopes for this one, but those hopes yet again are dashed. I mean, that pursuit roll, we see it running in, we see it getting blown up. Pretty consistent every time. This thing, again, hits that landslide at turn 3. Survivability tanks. It does hang in there on average till about maybe turn 5, turn 6. It does survive, 1%, 2% of the time. But largely this thing is dead by turn 5. 45.5% on the efficiency. Not great. I mean, especially for a mech that cost what this thing cost. It is skill 3 too. So going back up, what was it, 35 points? I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot of points just to have them vaporized and only doing 5% of the total damage. It's only doing 3 to 4 points of damage per game. So let that marinate. It's tough. So, not much to say here. I know we've talked about it in prior analyses. So it is what it is, but this thing just gets absolutely wrecked. Let's take a look at Thunder rolls. All right, so here we are. Similar pattern. I mean, these guys, this is a strong Lance, guys. Long range damage, medium range damage. Very rare you see long range damage outperforming your expected. But again, you've got 3 mechs in a direct fire roll. They're going to be walking, they're going to be shooting, they're not going to be sprinting as much to get in. 61.9% of the damage. It's like for every, 2 damage you do, I'm doing 4, that type of thing. It's pretty brutal. So anyway, survivability, 52.6, 52.8, somewhere in there. And you can see it's got 2 survivors. I mean, I think one of those mechs close to 100% survivability. That might be the 2 Warhammers at the top. Obviously, the Crab probably getting nuked. And then, we'll see what the other one is. Maybe the Trebuchet or one of the Warhammers. We'll dive into it. In terms of the movement in the center there, you can see, I mean, these mechs are all over the place. They're in a scrum. That Trebuchet is doing that weird dance in the backfield. That does that sort of hit and fade thing. The Warhammer's a little less shy about getting in. And the Crab doing what the Crab does. Just running in and getting blown up. Average range for this Lance was 9.7. But man, 40 points of damage in 10 turns. That's really good. That's a lot of damage output. Only taking 24.5. And that's because they're neutralizing threats before they get a chance to retaliate. 8.8 crits, only taking 5. So pretty good. Average lance efficiency, again, at 120%. So this is the second matchup in a row where this thing has had, this particular lance comp has had 120% on the efficiency chart. Both Warhammers doing really well. The Crab over 100% this time. Very interesting. And that Trebuchet not doing so hot. Where is that at? 80, 76? Impressive. So maybe that's the other one that didn't survive well. Let's dive in. Let's take a look at these mechs. So again, you've got two Warhammers. They're just twins. Both direct fire, both veterans, both doing really well. So this first one, 20.3%. Ouch. I mean, that's so much damage, guys. Does 13.1 points of damage. That's crazy. And it takes 7.3. So it's averaging 2 points of damage per turn between turns 3 and 9. That's really good. As far as damage taken, it's weird. So it's another one of these things where the Op4 focuses on it and then decides that they want to shoot something else. I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's either the Crab or it's the Trebuchet, based on the survivability curves. But this thing, I have nothing bad to say about these mechs, especially in this role, in this lance. I mean, again, it's the whole thing. It's the recipe that makes it work. But these Warhammer 60s are really good. So 141.4% on efficiency for this. And again, it's doing 20% of the damage, only costs 14.3% of the overall PV pool of the mechs on the table. That's pretty substantial. Okay, the other Warhammer. It's just like gold across the board. This thing just delivering and basically is untouched. I mean, it barely takes damage until, turn 9 is where you start seeing substantial damage come in. I mean, what's it take? Maybe like 2 or 3 pips. 97.7% survivability. If I'm not mistaken, I think that was very consistent with the last matchup as well. You had one Warhammer that was taking all the heat and the other one that was basically untouched. And it's interesting because if you look at the threat profile, it's a slow mover. It's got a lot of armor. I mean, 3 damage is good, but it's not like, whoa, I really need to take care of this thing. Again, the Crab can do more at short range, and the same at medium range, and is a lot easier to wipe off the table. So when you kind of look at like the amount of armor you need to go through versus the amount of damage it can do, I mean, it's not like a juicy target, but if you leave them alone, it's consistent damage every turn. I mean, starting on turn 2, this thing is delivering. So pretty impressive stuff. Hanging out at medium range, dealing 14.4 points of damage, like only taking 1.3. That's nuts. And again, this is, I know I say it every time, it's average over 2,500 games. That's crazy. It's barely taking any critical hits, and it's delivering 3 a game on average. So I'll take that any day. Efficiency 156.2%. All right, on to the Crab here. So I think last time it was a 10% damage to it. It looks very similar, but it's surviving a lot more here. 19% of the time this thing is surviving. I think last time it was much worse. But it's getting in. It's doing what it can do. It's dealing 6 points of damage, almost 7 points of damage a game. Its average range is about just under 5 inches, so it means it is getting into short. You can see late in the game that overheat coming into play, either when it's like basically knows it's going to die or it's got that short range kill shot. So overall, for a mech that only costs, again, very inexpensive, 9.7% of the overall PV pool on the table, which is 300 points. So it's only 9.7% of that. And, this thing, again, doing very, very well. 107.4% on efficiency, so pretty good. And then now let's look at the Trebuchet. So very different from the last game. The last one we looked at, I think the Trebuchet was largely untouched, right? I think it survived like a large portion of the game. This time it's only surviving, it's under 20%. It's actually just above the crab in the middle of the game, but basically on par with the crab by the end of the game. It's doing slightly less damage to 8.9%. It's getting primed up. It's taking critical hits, taking about 2 per game on average. A single weapon hit is really going to affect the output of this mech. And you can see it's interesting. If you focus on this thing, you really cripple it. I would love to, at some point, maybe look at the side-by-side of it in this game versus the last game. But if you leave this thing untouched, it was able to do on average like 1.5, I think, points of damage per game. Here, it's under 1, so it's not great. 76.3% efficiency, could be better, but at the same time, considering how well the rest of the lance is doing, I really can't complain. I mean, those trebuchets with the 4 armor, 4 structure, they're easy to wipe off the table, and you take 2, to 4 points of damage off the table, depending on what variant and if you're, if you're overheating or not. And so most of the time, you're going to want to take that. This thing does try to stay at range, though, 11.7. And maybe, the fact that it is a little further away and the fact that it has a TMM of 2, these things are additive, right? And on that 2d6 probability curve, maybe it eats a couple of misses, a couple of extra shots that otherwise could have dealt damage on a better target. But the engine does look at all these things. It calculates the probability to hit and all of these things. So this was allegedly the best target to shoot, and so it does go down just after that crab. Is what it is. So guys, the final analysis. Make your predictions now. Put your bets in. I think I know. Let's see. All right, here it is, guys. The big reveal here for round 3. So the key force markers, just to recap, these forces very, very similar. The Ion Raiders with just a little bit more structure, but a little bit less speed. How does it break down? Well, average range was very similar, 9.6 to 9.7, but damage, Thunder Rolls dealing 40 points of damage. Ion Raiders only able to churn out 24.5. And of course, more damage, more crits. You're looking at 8.8 critical hits to 5. So the Thunder Rolls dealing 8.8. Accuracy, Thunder Rolls almost 10% more accurate. Skill levels identical. So it just has to do with range, the number of the volume of shots at range and things along those lines. Thunder Rolls dealing 2.7 kills per game to Ion Raiders 2.4. So how did it pan out? Well, Thunder Rolls able to walk away with 88.5% of the wins. Ion Raiders basically at 11.4% of the wins. 11.5%, I guess we're rounding here. So Thunder Rolls moving on to the semifinals. So why, guys? Well, look at the survivability curve. Again, the Thunder Rolls unit able to survive more because they're able to take things out of the fight so quickly. Look how much damage they're doing early in the game. Turn 2, turn 3, turn 4. They're just absolutely crushing it. And we saw this in the last analysis as well. They're just outperforming the competition early in the game. They're getting those kill shots in. They're focusing targets down. That crab is running in, claws flailing, and that's eating all the fire while these big backfield mechs are just able to eat up things and take them out of the fight. So it's interesting. I'm excited to see how these guys do in the semifinals. So we are on to our final 4, guys. I will reveal those soon. And I got to tell you, they're all really, really, really strong contenders. So I'll be interested to see if this particular Lance Thunder Rolls able to keep with this trend of, these massive wins, or if they're going to hit, up sort of a brick wall. So that's all I've got. This was a fun one. Thanks to John over at Ion Radio. You made it to round 3, man, but unfortunately, Thunder rolls, just rolling over you here. Not much you can do about that. But guys, if you have not checked out Ion Radio, definitely do that. They're a partner channel of ours. Really good guys, BattleTech fans, Star Wars fans, general gaming, sci-fi fans. So there's some good battle reports out, Classic and Alpha Strike. They use the DFA rules for the campaigns that we put together. So really fun to watch that stuff. I would definitely check those dudes out. But other than that, guys, stay tuned. Of course, on the DFA side, we've got battle reports. I've got some more of this excitement coming for you as well. Some more of these Lance reviews, and I've got some classic BattleTech, Battlytics queued up as well. So we'll see there. Very excited about the Ill Clan stuff. Some really good things happening in that era as well. Maybe we'll get some Ill Clan battle reports out. I don't know. Very excited to try out some of the new Marauders and Zeuses with all the crazy weapons. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one. And of course, stay tuned. Always great stuff coming from Death from Above Wargaming. Have a good night.